सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे। रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमू रामाय तस्मै नमः। रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om everyone. Welcome to all the parents, teachers, sevaks and everybody else who is joining us for this Bhagavad Gita discourse today. In our tradition, before we begin anything auspicious, we seek the blessings of Lord Ganesha. And what could be more auspicious than getting an opportunity to study the Bhagavad Gita systematically starting from chapter 1. So we invoke Bhagwan's grace that may this study be fruitful and also may we be able to benefit from this text. Okay, so I'll chant a few shlokas on Lord Ganesha and you all can repeat after me. Ajam nirvikalpam nirakaramekam Ajam nirvikalpam nirakaramekam Niranandamanandamadvaitapurnam Niranandamanandamadvaitapurnam Param nirgunam nirvishesham niriham Param nirgunam nirvishesham niriham Parabrahmarupam Ganesham bhajema Parabrahmarupam Ganesham bhajema Gunatitamanam Chidanandarupam Gunatitamanam Chidanandarupam Chidabhasakam Sarvagamyanagamyam Chidabhasakam Sarvagamyanagamyam Munidhyeyamakasharupam Paresham Munidhyeyamakasharupam Paresham Parabrahmarupam Ganesham bhajema Parabrahmarupam Ganesham bhajema Jagatkaranam Karanajnanarupam Jagatkaranam Karanajnanarupam Suradim Sukhadim Gunesham Ganesham Suradim Sukhadim Gunesham Ganesham Jagadvyapinam Vishwavandyam Suresham Jagadvyapinam Vishwavandyam Suresham गणेशं भजेम परब्रह्मरूपं गणेशं भजेम परब्रह्मरूपं गणेशं भजेम. Hari Om. So I know today many new parents might be here. Those those of whom whose kids have joined Bal Vihar, some of whom those have joined recently, and some might be very new to Bal Vihar, also very new to Chinmaya Mission. So I thought before entering into Bhagavad Gita, we will just take a bird's eye view of how grateful we are to be where we are today, and what is it that has gone behind this whole setup that we are able to benefit from. Most of you must be knowing Chinmaya Mission was founded, I don't know is the right word, but for the sake of communication, we will say, was founded by Pujya Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda ji. Pujya Gurudev was a journalist who was also very skeptical about spiritual knowledge. He was someone who questioned each and everything right from childhood, and he also questioned the purpose or utility of spiritual knowledge in today's times. But the good thing was, this questioning led him to inquire with a very open mind. So with a quest of exposing the sadhus, that is what he calls it, Pujya Gurudev, he went into the Himalayas to see what kind of lives do these sadhus live, what are they doing to the society. And there Pujya Gurudev met Swami Shivanandaji Maharaj, who inspired him and gave him a completely new direction, new dimension of looking at life. So that inspiration was so powerful for Pujya Gurudev that who initially went to expose the sadhus ended up becoming a sadhu himself. So with that, his quest for knowledge was even more intense, and Pujya Shivanandaji Maharaj sent Gurudev to Swami Taponji Maharaj, who lived higher in the plains of the Himalayas. And Taponji Maharaj was a very strict teacher. It is said he would teach a lesson only once. And next time when you come to the class, you should remember what you have taught or what you have heard in the previous class. And if you cannot remember, you have to leave. That was the strictness with which Taponji Maharaj taught. And Pujya Gurudev, with his tapas, became very dear to Taponji Maharaj, studied under Taponji Maharaj. And while he was studying there, he felt an irresistible urge, that is how Gurudev puts it, looking at Mother Ganga. How Mother Ganga, without any expectations, even though it has the calmness, the elevated mindset of living and originating in the Himalayas, it is able to come down and serve the people in the plains. Even the people in the plains are able to benefit from Mother Ganga. Those of you who have been to Haridwar, Rishikesh would have experienced this particular aspect. It is said, Gange tava darshanat muktihi. Means, oh Mother Ganga, just looking at you, we get liberation. What does that mean? It means if you even sit by the banks of Mother Ganga, your mind will become quiet. Mind will become peaceful, just looking at Mother Ganga. And of course, on the banks of Mother Ganga, a lot of Mahatmas will be there, a lot of satsang will happen, a lot of ashrams will be there. So we will get satsang also. With this inspiration, which Gurudev got looking at Mother Ganga, Gurudev felt, why should this knowledge not be available to the people who live in the cities today? It's a different question whether they benefit from it or not, how much they want to take from it, how much committed they are to this knowledge. All those are secondary things. But his main point was, at least let this knowledge be available to them. In Kathopanishad, there is one mantra which says, Shravanayapi bahubhiryona labhyaha. This knowledge is something which so many of us don't even get to hear it. And we just, look around in the world, we realize this fact that even to hear that such a thing is there is a higher nature of my own self, and there is something more to this world. What is that thing? Many of us don't even get to hear it. Puja Gurudev said, I will remove that aspect. You cannot complain that you did not get to hear it. Whether you benefited from it or not is a different question. So he came down and gave this knowledge freely. He opened the doors as though of our scriptures and said, it's an open treasure. How much ever you want, you loot it. That was Puja Gurudev's vision. And one of the most important aspect of Puja Gurudev's bigger plan was his love for children. That is where I wanted to come. That Puja Gurudev loved children. He said, if these values, if these teachings have to benefit us later in our life, we need to start young. That was his main, vision behind starting Bala Vihars. He said, catch them young. And our scriptures are such, they are very age appropriate. Meaning for young children, the same teaching that we are going to study in these classes, which are for adults, the same teaching will be presented in a very sweet format. It will be either in, story format of Leelas of Bhagwan Krishna, and it will be in terms of several other fun-filled ways by which these children can relate. That is the main purpose of Bal Vihar, and that is why we have different grades through which this knowledge is given out by our wonderful teachers, sevaks, chicks, all of them, chicks meaning Yuva Kendra, all of them are putting a lot of efforts to do their best to present this knowledge to children. And if you see letters of Puja Gurudev that he wrote to children, a lot of it would be with fun-filled cartoons. He would communicate to children in the language they understood. So that was his love which he had for them. One quote is coming to my mind by Puja Gurudev. He said, children are not vessels to be filled, but they are lamps to be lit. Children are not vessels to be filled, but they are lamps to be lit. Now somebody might wonder, what is the difference between filling a vessel and lighting a lamp? The vessel means something where something is already there, something hollow has been created, and you just fill things in. It doesn't matter whether that vessel wants it or not, you just fill it in and then leave it. And that vessel will remain as it is. Versus, you see a lamp, how beautiful it is. Once you light a lamp, without losing anything for itself, it can also light many other lamps. That is why children, he said, are lamps to be lit. When the same children walk out into the society with a very strong value system, with faith in our scriptures, with a broader vision of life, they will become those lamps. They will become those lamps who will light many other lamps, not necessarily by teaching Bhagavad Gita or anything, but just by their conduct in the society. Just by their mere presence, they'll be able to show that there is something different about those who have studied this knowledge. That is the intention. Okay, that is the main purpose for which we have this program of Bal Vihar, so that may we become those lamps that show light to ourselves first, so we can walk that path, and also to others around us. So this was about Puja Gurudev's vision of Bal Vihar. Now Gurudev was a visionary. He never thought, what is my immediate concern or immediate solution to problems? His vision was what would help people 50 years, 100 years down the line. And when such a Mahatma thinks in that way, great structure comes into being in the society. So now one part you saw was about children. He said if we need to give this knowledge to children so they can live their life more with strength, we should start at a young age. But he also realized it is not only this 1 hour of teaching that we should give. The same spiritual teaching should also be available to adults so that the entire ambience, atmosphere in the family changes. So then he said, while children are studying, let the adults also study Shastra. It also deepens the reverence for this teaching in the child's mind. When he sees, my parents are also coming to class. I don't know if they give homework, but if parents also, go home and do some study on their own, the child also feels that this is important to me now. This is how many of us began our journey on the spiritual path. So with that introduction, we will begin our study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It's a very unique opportunity, very beautiful text, and we again and again invoke Puja Gurudev's grace and Bhagwan's grace for this study of Bhagavad Gita. Now, in our scriptures, there are 3 main texts, you call, broadly classified into 3 main categories, which will help us reach the ultimate inner unfoldment or the final purpose of human life, the ultimate purpose of human life. Those 3 are called Prasthana Trayi. The first Prasthana Trayi is called Upanishad. Upanishads are revelations that were given out to rishis who had a very pure mind. Second Prasthana Trayi is called Brahma Sutra. I am switching the order deliberately. Second is called Brahma Sutra. And third is called Bhagavad Gita. So if one is able to get a good grasp on all these 3 subjects, then the ultimate purpose of life is fulfilled, knowing our own true nature, knowing the nature of this world. But what happens is, Upanishads ask for a qualification. And sometimes looking at the qualification of the student, we get afraid. It says Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadamadi, Shatasampatti, all these qualifications, person should have, good ability to distinguish between what is eternal, what is not eternal, have a lot of dispassion. So it sometimes, makes people, they get afraid of Upanishads. Brahma Sutra is also not for everybody because it discusses mantras from Upanishad. Mantras which are ambiguous, mantras which need more clarification. Bhagwan Ved Vyasji discussed them in Brahma Sutra. That is why many people have this question, why don't we study Brahma Sutra? Because Brahma Sutra is not another text. Just like, how we have Bhaja Govindam, like that Brahma Sutra is not independent text. It only discusses the seemingly contradictory mantras from Upanishad. So what does Brahma Sutra expect as qualifications? That you should have studied the Upanishads and also remember the Upanishads, which mantra is said in what context. So then only one can benefit from Brahma Sutra study. But Bhagavad Gita is beautiful. If a student says, I have no qualifications, Bhagavad Gita says, come, this is for you now. Or put it differently, student says, I am ready to put forth effort. I want to seek something better in life. I have realized that my current way of living life is not the best way that I can live my life. That student becomes a fit student of Bhagavad Gita. It does not tell something different. Bhagavad Gita is not telling about some other, subject matter. Same subject matter of the Upanishad, the way it is presented makes it very unique. Okay, that is the pervasiveness of Bhagavad Gita, that no matter who the student is, where the student is from, which nationality that student belongs to, doesn't matter. Only qualification it asks is, are you willing to put forth effort and bring about some change in life? Okay, that is a beauty of Bhagavad Gita. No qualification itself is a qualification. Somebody might ask, what is the relevance of studying Bhagavad Gita in today's time? What is the relevance of studying Bhagavad Gita in today's time? There are two aspects of Gita which makes it very unique, especially given the times that we live in today. The first aspect is the teaching was given by Bhagwan Shri Krishna to Arjuna in a very unconventional setting. And that setting is in the middle of Mahabharata war. Right when both the armies are ready to attack each other, imagine the situation where such kind of angst is there, such kind of anger is there. In that setting, Bhagwan gives this teaching of Bhagavad Gita, the highest wisdom of Upanishads presented to Arjuna in a way that he can understand. So now you look at our lives, it is no less than Mahabharata. Mahabharata war, I mean. Sometimes people use it interchangeably. Wherever there are problems going on, people say there's a big Mahabharata going on there. So we have to clarify that. Mahabharata war, the battle of life, is what is being represented here. That is the first thing which makes it very relevant for our times today. The second unique thing of Bhagavad Gita is the student. And who is the student of Bhagavad Gita? None other than Arjuna himself. Now you look at the qualities of Arjuna. He was not somebody who lacked in skills. He was not somebody who lacked in resources. You look at the history of Mahabharata, I will just mention some pointers where we can understand Arjuna better. During the Swayamvara of Draupadi, Arjuna was the one who could look at the reflection of the fish revolving in the ceiling, and he could aim at that wooden fish which was there. That was his dexterity in archery. And there are several occasions where Arjuna ends up fighting with Bhagwan Shankara. There is a portion in Mahabharata where Lord Shankara appears as a Kirata, a hunter, and he challenges Arjuna to fight with him. Arjuna fights like a warrior, and Bhagwan Shiva is pleased with the way in which Arjuna fought. And several other places you realize or you notice in Mahabharata that Arjuna had great powers. He did so much tapas. He went on Tirtha Yatra, pilgrimage, just to gain divine weapons. There is a portion during Khandava forest, there is a forest that is burning, and Agni Devata seeks help from Arjuna to keep away Indra. So that, Agni wants to burn that Khandava forest, and Indra is trying to pour rains so that this forest is not burnt. But what happens in all of that is lot of divine weapons come to Arjuna. That is my point. Don't take the story in a different context. What I want to say is Arjuna had lot of divine weapons. So person who is not lacking in skills, not lacking in resources, but such a great warrior breaks down in the battlefield, in spite of having all resources, all skills. Now you look at our lives. We don't lack in skills, neither do we lack in resources. But when it comes to facing the battle of life, more often than not, we realize that we break down just like Arjuna. This is what makes Bhagavad Gita very relevant to us, even in today's times. How not to get confused while taking decisions. This was Arjuna's main problem. When a decision had to be taken, he was confused. Should I do this? Should I do that? Mind which is not able to decide, a turbulent mind. All of that will be addressed by Bhagavad Gita. And if you look at the society that we are living today, right, as I mentioned earlier, we are not lacking in resources, neither we are lacking in skills. What we are lacking in is a holistic vision of life. Okay, we are lacking in what? Holistic vision of life. The problems which are immediate or important, they take on immediate or urgent rather. They take on problems which are really important. Means I am so busy living my life in a shorter time scale that I forget that there are more important things in life that I should focus on, which will help me even in addressing my immediate problems. So that makes Bhagavad Gita even more relevant in today's times. One Mahatma very beautifully said, Bhagavad Gita is said to be the milk, from the cows, which are all these different Upanishads. Sarva Upanishado Gavaha Dogdha Gopalanandana. But what happens is, in the society that we have lived so far, we ended up only worshipping this milk. Milk is meant for gaining strength. So means you have to drink that milk, benefit from that milk, and become stronger. But what ended up happening was, milk was greatly worshipped, greatly appreciated, but nobody ended up drinking it. This is when Mahatmas like Puja Gurudev, Swami Vivekanand ji, they brought Bhagavad Gita into the public, into the open, and they said, this is for you now, you can benefit from it. Okay, so that is the glory of Bhagavad Gita, so that we don't live in a society which has very high ideals, but internally we are very weak. We know that we should be doing these things, but are not able to live our life to those ideals which are there. And Bhagavad Gita is one text which has inspired many people in different spectrum of life, different professions, different areas of service to the community. Few of them to name, one of the most famous names and very well-known names is our Mahatma Gandhi ji. There was a quote that I read about Gita from Mahatma Gandhi ji, which most of you must have read, but I'll just read it. It gives very, deeper import of how Gandhiji looked at Bhagavad Gita. He says, when doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare at me in the face, I see not one ray of hope on the horizon. I turn to the Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me. And I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. Those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meaning from it every day. Such a beautiful thought that we should try this ourselves. All of you must have some commentary of Gita somewhere, right? You must have Puja Gurudev's commentary. Whenever we feel down in some situation, try opening the Gita. One is attending the lecture, that also you do. But another is just making or feeling that Bhagavad Gita is my companion. When I need guidance, I can look in Bhagavad Gita for guidance, and that will lift me up. Any verse you take. That is the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. Now, what is the main theme of Bhagavad Gita? Okay, so we looked at the need to study Gita in today's context. We looked at personalities who have, who have been inspired by Gita. But now we will look at what is the main essence, main theme of Bhagavad Gita. It's interesting to see what was the question Arjuna asked to Bhagwan. Simply put, Arjuna asked, "O Lord, I am confused whether it is good to get defeated by them, by the Kauravas, or whether it is good to fight this war. Because I see only destruction happening. I see a lot of confusion whether I should fight this war or not." Now, Bhagwan starts giving the teaching of Advaita Vedanta. Okay, second chapter, in the beginning, the first portion of second chapter in Bhagwan's teaching is about the highest philosophical truth. Now we should understand what is the heart of Bhagwan here. He knows that Arjuna's problem is about dharma, but he doesn't want to give only solution at that level. He says this is the main problem, this is the fundamental problem, that you have misunderstood yourself and misunderstood nature of this world. Starting from that are all secondary problems. Then comes mine and aham esha mama ete. I am this and these are all mine. That is one level down, and starting from that is your symptom that you are showing now. So Bhagavan doesn't address problems only at symptomatic level. He goes right into the root of that. So with that, we should understand the main essence of Bhagavad Gita is to know our own true nature and nature of this world. In that light, we'll be able to address everything else. Okay, so that is why Bhagavan started with Brahma Vidya. He didn't give him better war strategies, or he didn't criticize Duryodhana, saying that Arjuna might feel better if he also joined Arjuna in criticizing Duryodhana. That was not the point. He said there is some other problem here, and he smiles and starts his teaching. Okay. One Mahatma very beautifully puts this. He says, it is like we are playing a game of life. Okay, we are playing a game of life. And in this game of life, there are two teams. The first team is me, myself, and second team is this world. But I don't feel that it is a game. I feel like we are struggling with each other. I make one move and the world has something else to defend against it. And we are in this constant struggle of wrestling with the world outside. Okay, so what was supposed to be a game, it doesn't look like a game at all. So game of life is far away from being a game of life for me. So he says, what is the main problem here? Main problem, he says, even though both teams have freedom, we have forgotten the rules of the game. Okay, teams, both of them will have the freedom to do whatever they want, but that doesn't mean they can do whatever they want. A game will always have rules. That is the first problem, he says. Okay, game of life, I forgot what are the rules of the game. Second is, I got too much attached with the equipments that were provided to me to play this game. You imagine if you go to play, a baseball game, and you get attached to the bat, the field, the people, the spectators who have come there. He says that is the second problem. What is the thing in game of life here? The analogy, this body. It's an instrument given to play this game of life, and objects of this world are also instruments that will help me play this game of life. But I have forgotten this fact and I have gotten attached to it. And third, and the most important one, he says, in this game of life, I should know that it is a game. I do have an identity outside of this sport field. If I take my game identity as my only identity, then I have missed the point. Okay, the game will not be fun anymore as much. So three things he says. One is, I should not forget rules of the game. Second is, I should not get attached to the equipments of the game. And third is, I should know I have an identity outside of this game. When that is good, then life is a game. I can say I'm playing the game of life. So why this analogy? Bhagavad Gita will tell us what is my fundamental identity. Okay, the third purpose, third error that we commit in game of life, Bhagavad Gita will address that also. That is the main point of Bhagavad Gita. Now it won't leave us there. It will also address the top two. It will tell me what are the rules of the game. It will remind me such that I can live my life by following those rules. And it will also help me not get too attached to this world outside. How do I have the right contact with the world? That also will be taught by Bhagavad Gita. And when the subtlety is understood, it's a joy to look at other factors also. Means when I understand the main teaching as revealing my nature as pure consciousness, nature of this world, then it's a joy to appreciate other things which will be told also along with this teaching. It's like you must have gone to some museum where you see a beautiful painting. Different people appreciate that painting at different levels. Somebody might say, oh, the color combination is good. Some great artist who has painted that picture, somebody might say, okay, this is a good color combination, or it just is a nice painting, that much. But there will be spectators, people who are able to see in and through the heart of the painter who made that painting. If that happens, then the real purpose of this painting is fulfilled. In the same way, through Bhagavad Gita, we should be able to see what is the heart of Bhagwan Krishna. So his main heart lies in telling us our absolute nature, but not only leaving us at that point, but also telling us how to live our life. This is what makes Bhagavad Gita as Margadarshaka Grantha. This is a teaching that Puja Guruji introduced us to. He asked this question, what is Upanishad called? Everybody, unanimously said, Smruti Grantha. Shruti Grantha. Upanishads are called Shrutis. Then he said, what is Bhagavad Gita called? Everybody unanimously said, Smruti. Puja Guruji then said, it is true, it is Smruti Grantha, but we should understand it is Margadarshaka Grantha. Margadarshaka means that text which will show me how should I live my life. That is what is called Margadarshan. So this is the uniqueness of Bhagavad Gita with which we will study this text. Okay, from both standpoints, from the absolute standpoint and also from more of things that will help me in my day-to-day life. For example, Bhagwan Krishna will tell us how should we find purpose in life. Having found the purpose, how should we achieve success without getting stressed out? Then he will say how to do this practice of meditation. The secrets of meditation he will point out. He will give the technique of mind management. Mind which is so turbulent, how do I control the mind? How to develop devotion for Bhagwan. That also Bhagwan Krishna will tell. How to keep my mind motivated and enthusiastic all the time. That also he will tell. But what is the main purpose of all these things? It is to understand a deeper layer of our personality. Okay, that all of these will lead there. I know we are running out of time. I'll just pause here. There is a saying in Sanskrit which says, in the footprints of an elephant, footprints of all other animals are included. What does that mean? It means elephant's footprint is so big, all other footprints of any animal you put, it will be included in that footprint. Meaning what? If we are able to become good sadhakas, if we are able to understand the whole picture of Advaita Vedanta, all other things that we are seeking in life will come naturally. It is not something we have to strive separately for it. Okay, that is the power of studying thoroughly. That is the power of understanding the entire text in its depth. What did I say? We don't have to strive for smaller aspects of our life individually. So all these things, what I just mentioned, right? Discovering a purpose in life, keeping mind calm, keeping mind enthusiastic, having good relationships. All of that is included in this quality of being a good sadhaka. Only thing is we should have patience and go through the text gradually. Okay, so all these topics will be covered, and with Bhagwan's grace, we will reflect on all of those and pray to him that may we benefit from that and live our life with strength. So the format of these classes are a little different. What we will do is the class will be for 45 minutes. The discourse portion will be for 45 minutes. And what I expect all of you to do is reflect on what I have said, what Bhagavad Gita is saying. And if you have questions from that, if you don't have to agree with whatever I say, but if you have doubts, some questions on that, you bring them in. So last 15 minutes we'll use to address those questions. Okay, so we look forward to it being an interactive format, and that is the whole purpose of doing 45 minutes of class. Okay, so thank you all for joining, and we will meet again. Now, since this is our first class, it's an auspicious beginning. What we will do is we will chant Bhagavad Gita Aarti. Okay, and then we might have a couple of announcements, so please stay back. I will chant. If those of you who have Gita Press book, it is on the last page, but I'll give you a few seconds if you want. Now everybody is online, you can just Google it also. Just look for Bhagavad Gita Aarti, Jaya Bhagavad Gita. We will chant it together, invoking the blessings of Mother Gita. Bhagavad Gita, Maya Jaya Bhagavad Gita, Hariya Kamala Viharini, Sundara Supunite, Om Jaya Bhagavad Gita, Karma Sumarma Prakashini, Kama Sakti Hara, Tattva Jnana Vikashini, Vidya Brahma Para, Om Jaya Bhagavad Gita, Nishchala Bhakti Vidhayini, Nirmala Malahari, Sharana Rahasya Pradayini, Sabvidhi Sukhakari, Om Jaya Bhagavad Gita, Raga Dvesha Vidarini, Karini Moda Sada, Bhava Bhaya Harini Tarini, Paramananda Prada, Om Jaya Bhagavad Gita, Asura Bhava Vinashini, Nashini Tamarajani, Daivi Satgunadayini, Hari Rasika Sajani, Om Jaya Bhagavad Gita, Samata Tyaga Sikhavani, Hari Mukha Ki Vani, Sakala Shastra Ki Swamini, Shrudiyon Ki Rani, Om Jaya Bhagavad Gita, Daya Sudha Barasavani, मातु कृपा की जय, हरिपद प्रेम दान कर, अपनो कर लीजे, ओम जय भगवद गीते, ओम जय भगवद गीते, ओम जय भगवद गीते. Before we begin Bhagavad Gita, we will also look at Dhyana Shlokas, Gita Dhyanam. So those of you who have Gurudev's commentary, the first chapter, it has those Dhyana Shlokas. So please do bring them. And we will see if we can start from it in the next class.